49ers versus Chiefs is an intriguing matchup. Probably the number one matchup for the 49ers so far this season. We're going to talk about all the numbers and how it points to how these teams go about winning football games. Going to be a fun conversation, all that and more in this episode of 49ers Cutback.
From the alley-oop to Kezar to the glory days at the stick. From who's got it better than us to brick by brick. It's always the 49ers way from off-season to game day. Yeah, we talk back. It's the 49ers Cutback.
It's 49ers Cutback podcast time. Welcome to the show, everyone. It's time for the tale of the tape, where we go over the numbers and see how these two teams match up, how they are playing this season, and just strictly stick to numbers. And sometimes numbers give you a clear picture on how both teams are playing, and sometimes you got to read a lot more into it. But what I have found is it's given us an idea of what the identity is of these football teams and how they plan on winning. And a lot of times there's some surprising numbers as well. How well do these teams play on third down? What does it look like for them in the red zone? How good are they according to DVOA? We just get involved in all of it. And sometimes it surprises people on how these teams really break out. What you also find out is which matchups, as far as which are strengths for one team, and maybe that counteracts with a weakness on the opposing team. Maybe you have a really good run offense against a really good run defense, or maybe, like in this case, you have a very good run offense in the 49ers against a very good run defense with the Kansas City Chiefs. So we're going to get into all of that, and I think that's always one of my favorite things to do. I love Tail of the Tape, so we're going to paint a picture in this episode. Please like and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. I really appreciate it. If you're listening on audio platform, 49ers Cutback on Believe Network, please give it a 5-star rating. Leave a review if you have the time. I'd really appreciate it. And if you're going to bet with Bet Online. Bet Online is the world's most trusted betting platform and your number one source for everything sports betting. Every stat, matchup, breakdown, and even live odds and spreads to bet on during games. With the largest catalog of odds on everything from football to Major League Baseball playoffs, NHL, NBA, to political props, when the game's over, head on over to our online casino and get in on a game of blackjack or poker or unwind with one of our over 150 slot games. Head to the website today to get in on the action with America's most trusted site for online wagering. Bet online, the game starts here. So I'm really excited to get into this. So we're going to talk 49ers versus the Kansas City Chiefs. And the easiest way to start is by just taking a look at the overall record. And the San Francisco 49ers are 3-3, coming off a big victory over the Seattle Seahawks and really trying to right the ship. Now it's a fresh season, right? You get to even and you say, hey, let's start from here. We've got 11 games left. Let's go play really good football and try to win as many of those as we can, because you're on a push to not just win the division, which now the 49ers are number one in the division, but you also are on a push to get a good seat in the playoffs. And so that's where the 49ers mindset is. Now with the Kansas City Chiefs, they're coming off a bye. They're going to be fully rested, probably mostly healthy, and so they're trending in the right direction. Now, there's been some things that haven't went perfect for the Chiefs, but you look at their record, 5-0, and this is a little bit different situation. Last year, the Kansas City Chiefs were the team that were struggling a little bit early in the season, and the 49ers were off to the 5-0 start for the season. So things can change, and seasons definitely don't always mirror each other. So this is two teams on opposite ends of the spectrum this time. Right now, Chiefs dominating, handling business as far as in their division. 49ers 1-2 in their division. But this is not a division or a conference game. This is out of conference. Normally, these games don't mean as much as far as seeding and as far as making the playoffs. But it's very important for the 49ers in this matchup. They have not been able to knock off the Chiefs since 2014. So they've got to get off the snide, and they've got to be able to get a big victory. And for the Chiefs, they want to just keep rolling. They've won 11 straight games dating back to last season, and they're ready to just keep this thing going. So overall, good team for the Kansas City Chiefs. Defense has been playing really well. And it's evident by their DVOA. They're number 4 overall in DVOA. Now, what might shock you, though, is you look at the 49ers, and they're number 5 at DVOA in the entire league. So that's grading out offense, defense, and special teams and getting to your adjusted rate. And the 49ers are 5th and the Kansas City Chiefs 4th. So even though you look at the record and it doesn't show that the 49ers have played as good a football as the Chiefs, the DVOA says they're right there with them. And so this is one of those values I love to look at because it adjusts for things that don't make sense, right? You have late yardage late in the game, and it might look bad against your defense, but DVOA adjusts for that. It knows the situation and how you execute in those situations. And these are 2 top 5 teams in the league. And I think coming into the year, that wouldn't surprise anyone if you said, oh, yeah, these 2 teams are top 5 in DVOA. No one would bat an eye. But both these teams pretty good on the season. Offensively, 49ers averaging 27 points per game, and they've started kind of ramping this up over the last couple weeks. And as that offense has gotten a little bit better at putting the ball in the end zone, in the red zone. So the 49ers up to 27. Now, it's going to be tough sledding against the Kansas City Chiefs defense. Very good. And so they've got to make sure they're pretty diligent on getting points when they have opportunities, especially in the red zone. You look at the Chiefs, they're averaging nearly 24 points a game. So pretty equivalent to what the 49ers have been facing as far as offenses that score points. Arizona, 24 points a game. Seattle Seahawks, 24 points a game. Kansas City Chiefs, 24 points a game. Now, the big difference between the 3, though, would have to be the quarterback. Patrick Mahomes is in a league of his own. And so he just needs that 1 second, that one moment, and he can absolutely light it up. So 49ers know they've got to do a good job this week of holding Kansas City down. They can't allow them those big-time plays down the field. They can't allow them to turn what should be field goals into touchdowns. That's going to be critical. But both offenses good enough to score points and good enough to win football games. So it's interesting because both teams are basically +6 when it comes to a scoring differential if you look at what they do defensively to offensively. So pretty close. DVOA close. This category pretty close as well. You look at total yards, 49ers outgaining the Chiefs 420 to 354. And this isn't always a clear picture, but I like to split it up. So I can give you an overview of what they do and then look at pass and rush yards. And that's really where we make our declaration on how these teams like to go about moving the football either on the ground or through the air. But the 49ers are having a big-time season as far as moving the ball consistently down the field. And that's reflected where they're number 1 as far as time of possession in the league. That's going to be a key element of this football game. Can the 49ers move the football consistently against the Chiefs? And can they keep Patrick Mahomes off the field? The best defense against Patrick Mahomes is to have him on the sidelines with his helmet off. That's easier said than done, especially with Chris Jones and Steve Spagnuolo in this defense, but that's the overall goal. So getting yardage and chewing up yards is important for the 49ers. 420 is pretty good. Last week, nearly 500 yards against the Seattle Seahawks, but that's not the same defense. Seahawks not even in the same world as the Kansas City Chiefs when it comes to defense. Chiefs are on a different level. Patrick Mahomes and that offense still moves the ball consistently, still puts yards up, and is still able to do some things. 354 yards, really good job for the Kansas City Chiefs. So let's look at the rush yards. 49ers number is going up week after week after week. And last week they played a game where half the game Jordan Mason was out. And Jordan Mason has been their leading rusher this year. They've been doing it without Christian McCaffrey. Yet you look up and they have nearly 160 yards per game on the ground. Last week, over 220 yards on the ground versus Seattle Seahawks. This has been a real strength for the 49ers. Offensive line blocking well in the run game. Edge blockers like George Kittle and Eric Saubert and Kyle Juszczyk and Jawan Jennings and Brandon Ayuk, and we just keep going, have been competing at such a high level and making the blocks on the edge. And the 49ers are going to require a big game from them against a Kansas City Chiefs defense that is so good against the run. So 49ers are going to have to make sure they execute at a high level, and that's going to be one of the keys to maintaining the clock, maintaining the football, keeping Patrick Mahomes off the field. That's going to be a key. So 49ers, 158 yards rushing. Just to give you an idea, last year, Christian McCaffrey led 49ers rushing attack gained 141 yards per game. So, yes, it's going to even out as we go through the season, but we're seeing that the 49ers still have a dominant run game, and it's going to need to be on display this week. Now, you look at the Chiefs, and the Chiefs are dealing with injury. No Isaiah Pacheco means that they have, had to make some moves, and it's been okay for them. They've been able to kind of get by. First, they brought in Samadri Pirine. He came into the game. Now it's Kareem Hunt, who he's played the last 2 weeks, and he's the leading rusher on this football team. And we still know Kareem Hunt can do it out of the backfield. He's averaging 85 yards per game, but the Chiefs averaging 117. And the Chiefs find unique ways to run the football, right? They'll still get the ball to McCole Hardman on jet sweeps if that's what's available. Xavier Worthy, you have to worry about him. So creativeness from Andy Reid produces opportunities. So the Chiefs with 117 yards per game, definitely good enough that the 49ers are going to have to pay attention, and they're going to have to put an onus on stopping the run game. You want to make a team one-dimensional. You want to make them have to rely on their quarterback, but that's tough this week because Patrick Mahomes is pretty darn good. But 49ers definitely have the advantage when it comes to running the football, and they've been pretty consistent at it this season. Now let's look at the passing yards through the air, and the 49ers offense putting up more yards, over 260 yards at 262 per game, and they have continued to just get better and better at getting the ball in the air. Now last week, Brock Purdy, 255 yards, 3 touchdowns, no turnovers against the Seattle Seahawks. 49ers would take that type of game every single week. Patrick Mahomes, on the other hand, didn't play last week. So we're going back to the Saints. He had a pretty good game. He has been struggling a little bit. Only 6 touchdowns to 6 interceptions. Hasn't been as dynamic, but just like with all things, just give him a second and he can make a big play for you. Don't wrap him up on a sack. Allow him to escape the pocket. Next thing you know, Juju Smith-Schuster, Xavier Worthy, Travis Kelce, somebody's trotting into the end zone for a touchdown, and the game is completely blown open or the game is completely changed. So we know that Patrick Mahomes gets it done. Now, a lot of times what I do is your average, you want to get about 400 yards per game. You like to average 150 yards per game on the ground. 49ers are doing that. You want to average at least 250 yards through the air. 49ers are doing that. Right now, well-balanced offense, very good offensive performance when it comes to yards. Now, it doesn't always yield the success you're hoping because you're hoping it's going to lead to touchdowns, but they've got it to where they've got a nice balance, and both of those ends of the balance are doing really good. The yin and yang of an offense is doing really good here. And when you look at the Chiefs, they're close to that, right? 117 yards on the ground. They'd like to see them get a little bit more, but you're looking at pass yards, and they're getting pretty close. And when you have a defense that plays as good as the Kansas City Chiefs defense plays, you don't have to get as many yards. So they have been highly effective so far this season. Now let's take a look at the quarterback comparison, Brock Purdy versus Patrick Mahomes. Brock Purdy is at a 65.4 completion percentage. Patrick Mahomes, 69.4. So right now, Patrick Mahomes has been the more accurate of the two quarterbacks. You look at yards, Brock Purdy has played one more game, so remember that when you're going through stats. Brock Purdy has played one more game, but he has 1,629 yards to Patrick Mahomes, 1,235. So both of them pretty close. I think, if Mahomes put up his average, he would still be short of Brock Purdy a little bit, but still both of them putting up numbers in a big way. Brock Purdy, 9 touchdowns to Patrick Mahomes, 6. And of course, one more game. Interceptions, Brock Purdy, 4, Patrick Mahomes, 6. In this case, is Patrick Mahomes with one less game than Brock Purdy, if you look at it that way. Sacks, Brock Purdy has been sacked 12 times, none last week versus the Seahawks. Patrick Mahomes has been sacked 9 times. Of course, they didn't play last week. So you can see the numbers are pretty close between the two guys. Brock has an advantage in some areas. You got to think in some areas Patrick Mahomes has an advantage. When you look at their quarterback rating, Brock Purdy's at 100.5. His season total last year was 100.1, so he's actually just slightly ahead of that. You look at Mahomes, he's at 88.9, so he hasn't been as good as he's been in years past, but he's still pretty darn good. And this is going to come down to these quarterbacks making plays. Converting on third down is going to be huge. So let's look at the offensive DVOA, and the 49ers actually rank ahead of the Kansas City Chiefs, 7th best as far as DVOA. It's not usual to see the 49ers outside the top 5. But last week they were 10. So just hanging inside the top 10, they've been able to improve. Chiefs hanging inside the top 10 at 9. It hasn't been as efficient. It hasn't been as effective, but they're still a top 10 offense, and really at any moment can turn into the number one offense if they're able to get going and execute. So let's take a look at the third down conversion rate. The 49ers offense is converting at 45.7, down a little bit from where they have been at times this season. They like to be closer to 50%, but still a pretty good mark. Don't fall below 45. That's not the most effective third down offense. And the 49ers are going to need their third down offense this week. Brock Purdy's going to face some 3rd and 5, some 3rd and 6s, and he's going to have to be able to convert. And if the 49ers do convert, that's the big difference, right? Extra set of downs, more time coming off the clock, more time of number 15 standing on the sidelines. That's what you're trying to do. And so third down effectiveness is going to be a key. And the Chiefs defense is very good on third down. We'll talk about that in 1 second. You look at the Chiefs offense, 42.6% of the time they convert. So 49ers actually better on third down efficiency when it comes to offense. So right now, that's an advantage for 49ers on third down. Now, when we look at defense, it's probably going to balance out because the Chiefs defense is really good on third down. 49ers defense hasn't really lived up to those expectations this year. But the good news is the 49ers have been pretty good on third down so far this season. Here's the third downs allowed. And you see right there, it jumps off the screen. Chiefs at a 35.6 rate. Very good on third down. Here's the only thing that the 49ers got going for them. Last week, they went against one of the best third down defenses in the entire league with the Seattle Seahawks. Of all the things Seattle did well, it was third down that they have been the best this year with Coach Mike McDonald. They were only allowing teams off the field teams to get first down to 32%. Phenomenal. That's elite caliber. Now, right here, the Chiefs are real close to that elite level, but just above it. So they are playing really good football on third down. Coach Spagnuolo does a good job of influencing what you want to do on third down and how quickly you get rid of the football. So this is one of those times that the 49ers are going to have to be really good on third down. And you look at the other side, and the 49ers are giving up third down conversions at 43.4%. Too high. You need to get that below 40% if you want to be a defense that's going to be really good as they move on through this year. The good news is it's gotten better and better and better. And so the 49ers are trending in the right direction. They gave up some extra third downs last week where they were allowing Seattle to check the ball down underneath and get first downs because they were just trying to prevent the big play down the field late in the game where they had a 12-point lead. So that's where DVOA comes in because those yards and those percentage of getting first downs counts against this stat. But DVOA takes those things into account, understanding the significance of what's happening in the game and not just being a number, but also being an actual reason. So, but both these teams pretty decent on third down, especially offensively. Chiefs on defense, very, very good. And you love to see that. Now let's talk about the red zone offenses. Red zone TD percentage for the 49ers. They score a touchdown 44% of the time that they're in the red zone. And we know this has been a problem for San Francisco all year. It has been widely discussed that once they get into that second portion of the red zone, the 10-yard in, that they've had a hard time scoring. Arizona, they could not score in the red zone. That's the reason they lose that football game. Now, you look at last week against the Seahawks, they're 3 of 5. It was definitely a lot better performance in the red zone, and that's the kind of performance you need against the Kansas City Chiefs. You need to score touchdowns. Last year, 49ers 68% in the red zone as far as scoring touchdowns, number 1 in the league, and that's why they were tough to beat. When they got down there, they scored touchdowns. This year, it's different. They actually lead the league in field goal attempts on drives. They kick field goals the most of any other team in the league because of their somewhat poor red zone offense. So they got to get better at that. You look over at the Kansas City Chiefs, they're actually worse in the red zone converting for touchdowns than the 49ers are. 6% less at 38%. So this is one of those times when the team that gets in there inside the red zone is able to execute and get touchdowns. It's probably going to have the best chance to win this football game. So this is going to be a huge matchup, red zone offense versus red zone defense. And you can see the Chiefs are better on defense inside the red zone than the 49ers. They give up touchdowns at a 46% rate. And you definitely want to keep it under 45%. You love it closer to 40, but they've played pretty well this year. But you can see there's an opportunity to get touchdowns there if you're a opposing team against the Chiefs. You look at the Niners, you have a better chance of getting a touchdown than you do a field goal right now. 55% means when you get in the red zone, you're more likely to score a touchdown than a field goal. That's not good. They've got to get better at that. They need to force the Kansas City Chiefs and Harrison Butker to kick field goals. If they do that, they potentially have a chance to win this game. If they don't, and they let Patrick Mahomes and this offense get in the end zone, it's going to be tough for this 49ers team to hang with the Chiefs down the stretch of this football game. So red zone efficiency on offense and defense is going to be a key in this game. Score touchdowns and give up field goals is going to be what the 49ers need to do. Now, when we're talking about defense, the San Francisco 49ers give up 21.7 points per game. Look at the Chiefs, 17. Chiefs defense doing it again. Last year, the 49ers gave up 16.8 points per game. Definitely a lot better. That's why they went in that Super Bowl, and it was them and the Chiefs. It was going to be defense on defense, and the 49ers defense and Chiefs defense showed up. So 49ers defense has been giving up a little bit more points, some of those late. You look at this last week, you had the 7 from special teams that was tacked on. So there's been some extra things there, some short fields. So I don't think the 49ers are really a 21 point per game allowed defense, but they are not exactly a 17 point per game defense like the Chiefs are either. So they've got to get better at keeping teams out of the end zone. And one of the ways you do it is by improving your red zone defense. We talked about it, 55%, not the best way to get it done. Now you look at the yards allowed per game, 49ers allowing 316, Chiefs 305. Not a big difference, right? 11 yards difference. So both these guys have been pretty stingy about allowing teams just to move up and down the field. And that's going to be a key for the Chiefs. Can they stop the 49ers offense from going up and down the field and sustaining long drives? I think that's going to be a key in this football game. And the 49ers are going to have to figure out how to get off the field on third down against Patrick Mahomes. Now, pass yards allowed per game, pretty much identical. 49ers give up 215, Chiefs give up 217. Now, the truth is, both of these teams would love for this to be under 200 yards, but when you're playing with the lead and teams are trying to come back on you, they're going to throw the ball more. And so I think that has elevated the numbers for the 49ers, especially with a team like last week where Geno Smith throws it 50 times. Your yards per game is going to go up a little bit because you're playing prevent defense and trying to make everything happen underneath, and you're giving up 7-8 yards per catch. Well, the Chiefs have had the same sort of scenario happen. So this is one of those situations where the number doesn't reflect how good the pass defenses have been, but still, both of them are pretty darn good this season. And as far as defense compared to last year, 49ers pass defense yards per game is pretty close to where it always is. Now, here's where you get the big discrepancy, and I know it's only 13 yards, but the Chiefs are only allowing 88 yards per game on the ground, 49ers at 101. 49ers did really good last week against the Seahawks, held them to 52 yards rushing on the ground against Kenneth Walker and Zach Charbonnet. That's a good job. But the Chiefs are holding opposing offenses and opposing running backs to 3.1 yards per carry on the ground. That is really, really good. That's best. That's one of the best in the entire league. So 49ers are going to have to stick to the run game if they want to get some things going. It's not always going to be pretty. You're going to have to get 1, then 4, 2, then 6, and you're just going to have to keep battling and battling. You got to make sure you find a way to run the football against a very good Chiefs defense, and a lot of that has to do with how good they are on the defensive line and how willing their linebackers are to attack. It's going to be a fun matchup for the 49ers, but run defense, very good for the Chiefs. 49ers defense, it has depended on week, even though I will say over the last 2 weeks, they've gotten a lot better at stopping the run, both against the Cardinals until the second half. That second half against the Cardinals, you could tell they were starting to gas and they were missing a lot of tackles in the second half. It wasn't for being in the right position, but not executing the tackle at the end. But they had held James Conner to 9 yards on 6 carries in the first half. It was a great performance, and then they fell off in the second half. This last week against Kenneth Walker, they didn't fall off, and they had that success, and it was a big game for the 49ers. But once again, what do? Play from the lead, and that really helps. So they're going to have to make sure they do that. Let's look at defensive DVOA, and you see the 49ers actually ranked 5th best in the league, while the Chiefs are ranked 8th. Like I said, it takes into account those late yards, those short fields, those tough situations that you're put in as a defense. So this is the best value to determine how good your defense is playing. And both these teams are really good. 49ers top 5, Chiefs just outside of it. And I don't think anyone would argue if you said the Chiefs were a top 5 defense. I think they are. The way they fly around, they're physical. They make things happen. They do a lot of really good things, getting after the quarterback, stopping the run. So there's a lot to like about the Chiefs. But you see the 49ers are right there. Coach Nick Sorensen's defense, number 5 in DVOA, very well respected. Probably wouldn't think that from some of the chatter you hear online and stuff, that Nick Sorensen's defense is playing so well, but they really are. And I think that there are a couple plays here and there from having big time, shutdown type games, and that's what they're hoping they're going to get here moving forward, is those games where they're just going to make a lot of big time plays. Now let's talk about turnovers, because this is going to be a critical part of this game. I was listening to Deebo Samuel and George Kittle on Deebo's podcast, and he was talking about the fact that when they turn over the football, they lose. And when they lose the turnover battle, they lose. And I think that's pretty much the case for any football team. But in this matchup, it's true. When the 49ers turned the football over in both Super Bowl matchups, they lost. If they could hold on the football and not turn over the ball and then play complementary football, they have a chance. So you see both of these teams have had 8 giveaways. So it's not bad. It's not great either. So both teams have been willing to give up the football. And so you're going to have opportunities for 49ers on defense. Just got to make sure you don't give the Chiefs opportunities when they're on defense. And you look at the takeaways, 49ers have forced 11 takeaways this season. Really good. And that's not including the other times they've gotten the ball in their hands or the ball on the ground. They could easily have close to 20 takeaways right now. The good thing is they have 11. And what was interesting to me when I was doing these stats is I went and looked, and I look at the Chiefs and I'm like, they only have 4? That defense, that aggressiveness with Reed on the back end, and Bolton at linebacker, and the pass rush with Chris Jones, and you've only forced 4 turnovers? Completely shocked by that number. The San Francisco 49ers have caused way more turnovers and have more attention to the football than the Chiefs. That's an advantage for the 49ers. 8 giveaways for Patrick Mahomes in that offense, including 6 picks, means maybe the 49ers have some opportunities to get their hands on the ball. And if you can win the turnover battle in this game, that will change things up. All of a sudden, maybe you get short fields and you get opportunities to capitalize for touchdowns. But the 49ers had opportunities. They caused 3 turnovers last week. One of those on special teams, but also Fred Warner knocked out a ball that got recovered by Seattle. That was almost a big turnover. And he got his hands on a Geno Smith football in the fourth quarter that could have been a game-sealing interception. So 49ers continue to press people and cause turnovers. And if they can have a big turnover game against Kansas City, that would be the easiest way to win. Not going to be easy, but that would definitely make it a lot easier. But yeah, I was surprised to see that the Chiefs haven't caused more turnovers the way that they play defense. So that's going to be something to monitor. Can Brock Purdy take care of the football? So you look over at the turnover differential, the 49ers are +3. That's really good news. I'd like to see this get up to like +10, +15, because that's when you're really rolling. You're causing turnovers and you're not turning over the football yourself. But you look at the Chiefs and they're actually -4. I'm surprised they're 5-0, to be honest with you, that this turnover differential, the bad red zone play, hasn't caught up to them yet. That type of situation, they've got to get better. They've got to get better on third down as an offense. They've got to get better in the red zone as an offense. And they've got to get better when it comes to turning over the football. And really, the defense needs to cause more turnovers. So you could see that there are opportunities for the 49ers to potentially win this football game if they can cause turnovers. But that's easier said than done. But you look at this matchup, 49ers +7 in turnover differential over the Kansas City Chiefs. That's giving yourself an opportunity if you could capitalize. So force Patrick Mahomes to make some tough decisions. With your Fred Warner and others, be looking for that football. Be looking for that sudden change that you can make an impact. Really, really huge. So turnovers could play a big part of this football game and who ends up winning. And then the third phase of the game, special teams. And the San Francisco 49ers, let's just say what it is. It hasn't been good this season. Week 1, the 49ers are one of the top teams in DVOA. Since then, it has been a fall from grace. It has been just a huge plummet down to the bottom of the league. Now, they're not the last place special teams unit, but they've been at 31 for 2 weeks, and here's why. over the last 2 weeks, the 49ers have found a way to make a big-time play on special teams. Against Arizona, you get the blocked field goal by Jordan Elliott. Fantastic. It turns into a touchdown for Deommodore Lenoir. Boom. But you also get a negative play because you get a big-time return. Then you come back this week and you get a Darrell Luter Jr. knocking the ball out against Laviska Shenault, and the 49ers get the ball, and it's a huge turnover. Yes, special teams makes a big play, only later on in the game to allow Laviska Shenault to get a big-time touchdown on kick return. Those types of things really hurt this football team. So 49ers got to make sure their special teams is clean. They've got to make sure that they don't have any mistakes. That means find a way to get the kickoff out of the end zone. Do not allow Mecole Hardman and that group to return any kicks, number one. All touchbacks. Number two, rely on the things that you do well. If you're going to punt, you're usually doing pretty good. You have good punt coverage. So don't do anything cute. Just do what you're supposed to do. And I think if they do that, they'll be okay. Now, there's going to be question marks about the 49ers kickoff and their field goal units because Matthew Wright has still been injured. And he, of course, we had just signed last week to replace Jake Moody. He's still injured, which means there's a good possibility and probability that Andres Carlson, who's on our practice squad, who kicked for Green Bay last year, is going to be handling kicking duties. Do not rely on Andres Carlson to kick field goals for your team. Get into the end zone so that way you limit the effect he can have. If he misses an extra point, 1 point is a lot different than 3. Now, you can't really have any of those mistakes, but this could be a huge advantage for the Chiefs. So the 49ers got to mitigate damage. They've got to play a secure game in all 3 phases of this football game. You have to make sure you win the time of possession. You have to make sure that you win third down conversion. You have to win in the red zone, and you have to win the turnover battle. That's how you're going to beat the Chiefs. Complementary football. So it's going to be a fun one. I'm really looking forward to this matchup between these two really good football teams. And, you know, they grade out so high when it comes to DVOA. But this was the tale of the tape, what the numbers say about how these teams win. And you can see both teams have advantages in certain areas. Who can capitalize is going to be one of the keys. Please like and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Appreciate that. If you're listening on audio platform, 49ers Cutback on Believe Network, please give it a 5-star rating. And, of course, this episode is brought to you by Bet Online. The game starts here. I'll catch you guys on the next one. Until then, stay safe. Remember, the right way is always the 49ers way.